So today we're going to show you the process from start to finish, from taking burr comb that I just taken out of the hive, and we're going to render it down the first step. And then we're going to bring it out here for our solar melter and show you how just taking some scrap wood you have laying around, you can make a melter to filter and melt your beeswax. And in the end, you're going to have clean beeswax. So welcome back to Tina's Hideaway. So the first part of rendering down this beeswax to get a nice clean bar of beeswax, and this is a 1-ounce bar, is you take this really nasty burr comb, which has dead bees, it could have pieces of grass, it can have anything in it. When we collect this when we're out by the hive doing an inspection. We scrape off any burr comb that they built that doesn't belong there, and I just put it in a bowl. Sometimes there's honey. You can see there's a little bit of honey at the bottom of this bowl. What I did do last weekend is I drained what I could for honey off of this, and all I did was I put it in a strainer with a container underneath and drained what honey I could off of this burr comb. I ended up with a little over, I had 2 containers, I ended up with a little over 5¼ pounds of honey. I used that to can my apples, so I couldn't show you the amount of honey. But, so we're going to take this, we're going to end up turning it into this. And the first step of doing that is we got to take all of this, and yep, it has the dead bees, it has everything, and that's okay, because we're going to use cheesecloth. And I'm going to pour all of this in here and try not to make a total mess. Honey and all. Because what's going to happen is we have this water over here that's at just under a boil. We'll pick up all these pieces that spilt. And with the cheesecloth, what the cheesecloth is going to help do is it's going to filter out all these dead bees and everything else. And in the end, we're just going to have some dirty beeswax, which is okay, because then the next step will be the solar melter, which is going to be outside in the sun. So I just take this, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just to mainly get the majority of the honey, the dead bees, any other stuff out of there. And I just take a twist tie and tie this. As you can see, I have some other ones here. I put them on plates because, as you can see, there's still some honey draining out of there. But now we have our water, and I always have a tongs, and I just keep using the same tongs because this wax is really difficult to clean off of here, so I just keep using the same tongs to do my wax. So what we are going to do is just put this in this warm water, and it really doesn't take long. And you can see it's already starting to melt. So what it's doing is melting down all that burr comb, and it's melting and separating the beeswax. And it cooled the water down a little, so I'll just turn it up. And it does take a little bit. Just keep moving it around. And you can see it's just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And you're not going to really, I mean, you can see the yellow on here, and that yellow is the beeswax. But we're not going to see really a final product until we get this water to cool. And even though I tried to get as little bees as possible when I was collecting spur comb, but the hive was so full, and it's such a good healthy hive right now that there was a lot of bees, and no matter what I did to smoke them or anything, they just would not go away. So there is a lot of dead bees there. So this is pretty much all melted down, other than all the bees, but you can kind of see the yellowish film that's on top here, and that is our beeswax. And what will happen with beeswax will float to the top of the water, the honey will go to the bottom, all the other crud will go to the bottom. But then what I want to do here, because see all that yellow coming out? That yellow is our beeswax. So I kind of want to squeeze as much of that out of here as I can. And then I'm going to do that with the rest of these bags too. So once I'm done doing this with all these bags, we're just going to turn this water off and we're going to just let it cool completely. And then we'll come back and show you at that point the next step. But the other thing I do want to mention to you is, like I said, I use the same tongs every time. Use the same pot every time because it's extremely difficult to get all that beeswax off of there. So then I just take this and I just put it in a container because I am just going to throw that away. I'm not going to keep that. I'm not going to try to reuse that cheesecloth. I suppose I could if I really wanted, but I don't think it's worth the hassle to try to clean that. It's pretty cheap to buy. So I'm going to do that with the rest of these bags. And then we'll come back later and show you the cooled off product. And we'll also show you how we're going to take it outside and we're going to put it in our solar melter and melt it to clean it one step further. All right, see you in a little bit. Been a couple hours since we melted down all those cheesecloth bags with all the burr comb in it. And you can see here, all the beeswax is right on the top here. This pot is still a little warm, so I'm not going to pull it out because there could still be some and it'll fall apart and be goofy, but you can see this is how it works. And then this is the stuff that we'll put into the solar melter and run it through there and it'll filter it out and make it all clean. All right, so here we are outside to do the second stage of rendering our beeswax. Today it's about 61 degrees out. It is sunny. That's really what we need, is that sun to shine. So this box here we made just out of scraps we had laying around, so it didn't cost us anything other than to buy the paint roller pan, which we put holes in with a nail and a hammer. And it's because we've used it's got wax in it, but that'll melt as this all heats up. We've lined this with 1 inch insulation to hold the heat in, and then it's just plywood on the outside. We added a board in the middle to help hold our paint pan, and then we lined the aluminum foil to help reflect and keep that sun reflecting off of everything on the inside. And then on the bottom I just put boards in there to hold my pan that I'm going to have the wax drip into. So we have this pan here that the wax is going to drip into, and I just line that up underneath there. Because it's a little breezy out, I'm going to wait to put my filter in there, but here is the beeswax that went through the first stage and cooled. And all I did was take all that burr comb in that cheesecloth, and this is what I end up with. So I have a couple different pieces here that we're going to melt down and filter out. All you take is some paper towel and you line it up in here. Make sure it's coming up and covering that. The stuff's already starting to melt. It's kind of nice out today. And then you set this stuff right in here, because as it heats up, it is going to start melting and working its way down. I may have to add some of this a little later. I'm going to break it up. So we'll just put that in for now and let that melt. And then what we do is I just had a spare window we found laying around. And so we just cleaned it up real nice. We set it right on top. And then we have the sun that shines in. We can monitor it with our thermometer. But that sun shining on here is just going to really create a lot of heat. So we'll come back in a little bit, look what the temperature is, and see how our wax is doing and how it's melting. So here we are. It's a little over an hour later. The temperature in the box is now about 125 degrees. A little bit ago, it started melting the wax down into the pan below. As you can see, all the gunk is staying on top of the paper towel. The clean wax is going into the bottom, and we're going to have nice, clean, rendered wax. So this is working out really good. The one thing we did do is we did tilt the whole box up just a little bit, so with the angle of the sun, more sun was shining in there. If this was a 90-degree day, this process would go much faster, but really all we need is that sunshine, and it just may take a little longer since it's not super warm out, but in the end, we're going to have clean wax, so that's what's important. So we'll come back here in a few hours and we'll see where we're at and how much wax we're going to get. All right, here we are about another hour later. The temperature in the box right now is a little over 130 degrees. Most of the stuff that was in there is melted. You can see it left all the yucky stuff in the paper towel. and the rest is down below. And it cools down there because the bottom of the box is a lot cooler than the top half of the box because obviously heat rises. So now I have a couple more pieces here that I'm going to add. And I had a couple pieces that I had pre-poured into 1-ounce bars, but it has some dirt in it. So I'm just going to re-melt it through the filter, and that way it's nice and clean for when I use it for everything else. So we do have some honeybees flying around because they can smell that wax. I'm going to try to do this kind of quickly so I don't let bees in there, but we may not be able to avoid it. And I want the wax to be on the top portion here so that it filters out and it doesn't have all that dirt at the bottom that can potentially clog that filter. And it's warmer towards the top of this melter anyway, so it'll melt better that way. Got a few more pieces. Looks like one honeybee got in there. All right. The other big trick is to make sure that you have this on flat. When I first started today, I didn't have it quite on flat. So of course it's not going to heat up as fast either. So we'll come back in probably another hour and see where we're at. So it's about 5:30 at night, and it's obviously the sun's not out anymore. There's rain coming in. It's a little overcast. The one downfall with anything solar, you need the sun. So we don't have sun anymore. So obviously it's not working anymore. But it doesn't mean we had an unsuccessful day because we still got that much beeswax. And look at how clean that is. There is no dirt, no gunk. So what I'll be able to do is melt this down and pour it into my 1-ounce bars then I have pre-measured bars. I know exactly what I have for beeswax, and I'm going to be set. So the rest of this is what I had added before, but we're just going to have to wait till the next time it's sunny out, and then we'll set it out again and hope for a longer sunny day. So now we're going to take the wax that we did get from when the sun was out today, and we're going to melt this down and we're going to put it into 1-ounce bars. This way I have it so when I'm making, whether it's lip balm or hand cream or soap, I have it pre-measured and I don't have to worry about melting it down to measure what I need. So what I use is a double boiler, and I just put some water in there, and I use an old like soup container or juice container, and we formed it so that it has a spout on it, and I use a skewer to kind of stir the wax in here. And all we're going to do is I am going to break it so that it doesn't quite fit otherwise, like height wise. So I just put all these pieces in here, and with the double boiler method, it'll take a little bit, but this is going to melt down. And then at that point we'll come back and we'll pour it into here, and then we let it cool, and at that point we have our final wax product. So this is the last step of pretty much a 3-step process that I use in order to get my beeswax. There could be way better ways out there. This is just where I've taken bits and pieces from different things that I've seen, and I made what works for us. So we'll come back in a little bit and we'll show you how this is melted down, and we're going to pour it onto here. So as you can see, this is all melted down now. So what we're going to do is we're going to just turn the stove off, and I'm going to set this container on a paper towel just to get some of the water off so the water doesn't pour. And then I just pour it into this container here, and these are all, when they're filled, they're 1-ounce bars. And I put a paper underneath it because sometimes I get a little klutzy and there's always a chance that I'm going to spill. Now typically we would wait until we have a lot more beeswax to do this process, but it looks like we're going to get at least 5 ounces, and I have some left over even. We're just going to drop things anywhere here, and we'll pour. So just from what we had today for sun, and there's a little dirt there, so I might run that one through the filter again, but just with what we had for sun today, and it was overcast and sunny, and it really makes it hard for the solar melter to stay and maintain its heat. But we still got 6 ounces of beeswax just from what we did have for sun today. So I'm actually pretty happy with that. What we do then is let this cool completely, and we just tip them up. And once we tip them, we end up with bars like this. And that's how we get our beeswax. So I hope this was informational. I hope it was interesting. Like, and if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe. Thanks.